Good morning, everyone. Since I'm starting with the logistical stuff, I think I'll do that now so we don't waste any time at all. We have a full schedule. Very exciting today. Um, so just to be the first to welcome you, my name is Arit Kalman, and I'm a senior facilitator with Sac State Consensus and Collaboration Program, and really grateful to be invited with the rest of the Sac State team to help plan and facilitate the Floodmar Forum this year. We have a great schedule for the next 3 days as we take this journey together, and really hope that you'll be able to participate and take as much advantage of the time that we have today, and all the knowledge and expertise that will be part of this conversation. So on the next slide, I want to just go over just some quick logistics. Want to acknowledge, since we met 2 years ago at the Floodmar Forum, a lot has changed. We really would have wished that we could be together in person as we did 2 years ago. But as society, we've gone through a lot of changes, a lot of social upheaval, a lot of COVID-related things that is really changing how we interact and connect with each other. And want to just acknowledge that we really would want to be with you in the room, in the coffee line, having conversations, engaging. And we're really trying to the extent that we can, find opportunities for us, not just to listen in, but really to engage with each other. So just some logistical things for you to consider to help us be as engaging and connecting as possible. So first to say that if you have any technical issues, just chat Tommy and ask him for any kind of support that you may need throughout the 3 days. Make sure that your name on Zoom include also affiliation or something, some descriptor so people know who you are. And mute your microphone when you're not talking, and unmute when you want to say something. I'm sure throughout this, maybe we'll do like a quick count of how many times we said you're muted. This is becoming quite the phrase. So please just get yourself comfortable. And on the next slide, I want to just highlight different ways that you can participate in conversation. So feel free to raise your hand if you want to ask a question or provide comments. We have specific times between presentations where we're going to be looking for your feedback, so please do so. You can also use the chat box if we don't have time for all the questions and comment, and we will be tracking and collecting all the input provided throughout the forum. We're going to have a couple of different ways of getting feedback from you. We're going to have some multiple choice questions using Zoom polls, where we're just wanting to check in with you on how you relate to the information provided. And we also have Mentimeter polls that there will be a QR code. You can use your phone to track that, or a link that Tommy will put in the chat, and that would allow you to give more of an open-ended kind of response and allow you to weigh in a little bit more broadly to questions throughout the 3 days. We also have various breakout sessions. So after presentations, we're trying to mimic the sitting around the table and having informal conversations and reflecting on what you just heard. So these are not facilitated sessions. They meant to be very informal, but please take an opportunity to do that. We would just put you randomly into rooms and give you time to just check in with each other. So take advantage of that. We also, on the website for the forum, have some on-demand content that people have submitted. So that's, again, just another way to round up and provide more information and content. You can do that on your own anytime. And importantly, we hope that you stay for happy hour with us. make that happy hour whatever you want it to be for you. And we have very special contents at the end of each day that we'll speak about later on. So we hope that you can connect that way. Again, these will be more informal. Really like seeing your faces, so please feel free to join us. And Tommy just put in a link to the speakers' bios. So if you want to learn more about the participants or connect with them directly, you can do that. So with that, I would like to introduce our first speaker. On the next slide, Kamiar Giovici is a Floodmar champion, and every time Kamiar, you speak, I feel that I'm learning about Floodmar and its definition and application in a different way. Kamiar has been with DWR for 43 years and has served as a division manager since 2008, managing staff work and leading collaboration of numerous government agencies, Native American tribes, stakeholders, and the public to prepare the California waterplaning updates from 2005 all the way to the upcoming one in 2023. He chairs the 30-member state agency steering committee and is the state co-chair of the California Biodiversity Council Executive Committee. So welcome, Kamiar. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Orit. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the 2021 Floodmar Virtual Public Forum. I want to just begin first by thanking the participants in this year's forum, which includes students and young professionals, tribal representatives, and a very large and growing Floodmar community, or as we now refer to it, the Floodmar Network. Also want to thank the many speakers that we'll hear from during the 3 days of this forum, over 45 speakers, and then our 3 sponsors for this event: the Almond Board of California at the aquifer level, CBEC Eco Engineering at the district level, and Graham Fogg with the UC Davis at the parcel level. And their sponsorships have been instrumental in providing scholarships to our students and tribal reps and others. Also want to thank the planning team and the facilitators who have put together an amazing program for us all. And particular shout outs to Tommy Amundsen and Megan Wiley with CSUS Center for Continuing Education, and then Orit Kalman also with the CCP at CSUS, and Jenny Marr at the Department of Water Resources. I thought I would just give you a thumbnail description of what we mean by flood managed aquifer recharge, or Floodmar. In its most basic form, it's using very high flood flows for the purpose of groundwater recharge on agricultural lands, working landscapes, and managed environmental lands. And I always like to remind ourselves the context for and the importance of this strategy. And that is, with the extreme events that California is and will continue to experience, exacerbated by climate change, requiring that we knit together our many water sectors, including those who manage our flood risk, manage our groundwater resources, and manage our environmental and ecosystem resources. With that, I want to kind of focus on what we're up to here in the 2021 forum. So you might ask, why 3 days? Well, it's been 2 years since we had the 2019 forum, and we had one before that 2 years prior in 2017. And a lot has been accomplished and a lot has been done in the last 2 years. So we really want to take this opportunity to hear from and learn from the many participants over the last 2 years on floodmar related activities. And what you'll see kind of interwoven throughout this program is the fingerprints of what we're calling the floodmar network. And you'll hear more about that later this morning. We're going to learn about partnerships. We're going to learn from practitioners on aligning the multiple sectors to do floodmar, the researchers who are helping us fill knowledge gaps needed to do more and scale up floodmar, and then the enablers who are providing guidance on how we can get the technical and financial support to do more. We're going to hear from tribal perspectives and hear tribal stories throughout this event, and then from visionaries who really are laying out the next steps for floodmar in California. And I just want to say that since the 2019 forum, we have really gone from what I would consider good intention to making an impact and setting the stage for change. And I think from this forum up to the next 2 years, that change, that impact can and must accelerate as a way for transforming the way we manage water in California in support of sustainability and resilience. So with that, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the first of 2 keynote speakers this morning, Nathan Whalen. Nathan is a photographer, filmmaker, and he lives in California and has focused his work on the intersection of climate change and freshwater management, particularly in rural communities. Nathan received his bachelor's degree in photojournalism from San Francisco State University. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Nathan.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Kamyar. I really appreciate that introduction. And thanks everybody for being here and for inviting me to speak briefly about this little film I made about floodmar. I really feel humbled to be in the presence of so much expertise because I'm just a filmmaker, and I've been following this issue for maybe a decade, but I have nowhere near the technical knowledge that this group represents. So thanks again for having me. As Kamyar mentioned, I graduated from SF State with a degree in photojournalism. And starting about 2008, I became interested in water management issues in California, and I've been trying to describe that situation visually kind of ever since. So this very short film that we're going to watch started with a partnership with the Water Foundation, which is based in Oakland, and they were interested in some communication around floodmar and its significance, why it was necessary, and the potential benefits that the state could receive from this technology. So they hooked me up with Sustainable Conservation, who connected me with people like Dawn Cameron, and they were gracious enough to allow me to interview them and film some recharge, which for me was really interesting, and I really appreciate their support in this project. After we show the film, I think there's going to be a little bit of time for question and answer, I think after Dawn's speech. So with that, I think we can just move right into watching the film, and I look forward to answering any questions any of you might have. And again, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
The San Joaquin Valley is a really unique place. To me, I look at it as a national treasure.
It's really a unique climate and ecological region, I would say, in the world.
We're the only place in the world that we can grow at this production level and sustain the orchards and the soils.
The food we produce gets not only used in California, throughout the United States, but really around the world.
You cannot rely on another country to provide you your food for your nation.
We feed millions with the agricultural produce and farm output from that region. The only culprit we have to deal with is water.
Typically, the snow falls in the Sierra Nevada, and that's really where the water is stored. From there, it moves down the rivers, into the reservoirs, and then down through the rivers again, and to the different irrigation districts, where the water is spread out for surface irrigation. However, where we farm, we have been reliant on groundwater.
If you look at paleoclimate records, we are apparently in the process of heading into a drier period.
No snow and rain up in the hills, there's no water to deliver to your farmers. Even if you have the rights to it, there's just not water there.
And this is where groundwater comes in. Pumping groundwater was always considered a substitute to meet the water demand in agriculture.
Some of the districts are strictly on groundwater.
What really got my attention early on, I saw that the water table was dropping at about 1 foot per year. So I knew we were overdrafting.
Some of the drought years, I think overdraft was estimated to be as high as 9 million acre-feet a year.
There is a bottom to it, which means at some point you're going to run out of water. We had to make changes.
These wet years occur on about every 5 to 7 years. I mean, the good news is, I guess, they're all wet years, so we should take advantage of them. The bad news is how to plan for that.
With climate change, it's probably a time to start capturing more of our rainwaters and storing them.
If there is a wet year coming around and you have fields that are connected to infrastructure, you just put water on those fields and you let it infiltrate.
If you can get 6 inches across 2,000 acres, that's a tremendous amount of water you can get into the ground.
We've applied synthetic nitrogen fertilizers for decades.
Talk to a farmer from the 50s. Everything was just throw some nitrogen fertilizer on. And they were putting it in abundance because it was cheap.
It becomes an issue when you have a rural community that is using groundwater as a drinking water supply. If we recharge fairly clean water, like rainfall runoff from the mountains, that could cause dilution of groundwater.
You're actually making the groundwater diluted more, which makes it a cleaner water.
Growers have a resilience and they have a way to figure solutions to problems.
We don't want to ruin the groundwater by putting something on the soil. We want it to be sustainable.
Are we negatively impacting the leaching of pesticide residue with groundwater recharge? Or is it maybe not a concern? It might be as simple as just regulating the timing when recharge should be happening.
We are hoping that after this experiment, we can say, okay, recharge in this type of fields is safe, no pesticides are leaching to the groundwater. This is another piece of the puzzle which we hope to solve.
Farming is ever changing. We're always learning.
Growers have made changes, huge changes.
It's a science. We're taking tests, we're watching the temperatures. Farmers are more than happy to adapt their practices if it's a beneficial thing. It's a balance of sustainable farming.
We know by 2040 we do have to make changes. By law, we will now have to make our groundwater sustainable, which means we're going to have to stop the depletion, we're going to have to stabilize.
Somebody needs to encourage the water districts to do a massive amount of groundwater recharge on the years where there's plenty of water available.
It was amazing to see our neighbors when the light came on and they realized that this could keep their water table in better shape, that it could allow them to continue to farm more of their ground.
All of the subbasins get water. You're actually helping your neighbors out as much as you're helping yourself. The hope is that this ranch that started back in '69 can go on for at least 3, 4, 5 generations.
I think California agriculture is going to continue to change. It's going to continue to be strong for many, many, many years to come.
Thank you, Nathan. Amazing documentary, and it really helps to bring to life a lot of the discussion that people will hear throughout this Floodmar forum. I think it really is a nice way to set the stage for all the great information that people will be hearing. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. With that, I'd like to introduce our next keynote speaker, Don Cameron. You saw Don in the video, and he is certainly, in my book, a star when it comes to flood managed aquifer recharge and sustainable approaches to agriculture. I had the privilege of meeting Don when as his role in president of the State Board of Food and Ag. He's been with the Food and Ag Board from 2014. Don is also vice president and general manager of Terra Nova Ranch since 1987. And he's also the director and chair of the McMullen Groundwater Sustainability Agency. In 2017, Don Cameron and their work at McMullen was awarded the Governor's Environmental Leadership Award for the ecosystem and land use stewardship associated with the McMullen Floodmar project. And every opportunity I get, I like to present Don as the godfather of Floodmar. He's been practicing Floodmar at Terra Nova Ranch for the last 30 plus years. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Don.
Thank you, Kamyar. It really is a pleasure to be with the group today, and this is near and dear to my heart. It's kind of funny, you forget about some of the interviews you do until they show up in a video like this, but really a well done video, and really explains what we're doing. It's always amazed me how such a simple concept that was developed here on Terra Nova over 10 years ago, flooding wine grapes, has grown into what Floodmar is today, and really what an important part of the state's water resiliency program. I remember back to 2010 when Phil Bashan and I were having a field meeting in a late afternoon in December when we were setting up for an NRCS Conservation Innovation Grant. And Phil asked me, so where else can we put floodwater? And simple question, I answered, in the vineyard. And the rest is really history. At Terra Nova, I started studying ways for capturing floodwater over 10 years ago, pre-Sigma, with studies, with borings, feasibility studies. At that time, floodwater was an unwanted commodity. It was a problem causing downstream flooding and damage. Floodwater today is now being fought over and is a very valuable asset. From a farmer's perspective, I know that we'll have to farm differently if I'm planning to put floodwater on growing crops for an extended period for recharge. We're going to have different timing of my fertility program, any weed control program, and different disease control program for the crops that I grow. There's also a risk associated with flooding perennial crops that really gets the attention of some growers. Windstorms, disease issues, they're always a concern. But there's always additional research needed to determine, any long-term effects of growing plants with this much water. For us, we have not seen a problem. We've watched our crops very carefully. And now with Sigma in critically overdrafted basins, water accounting and credits come into play. Decisions are going to be made on who gets the credit for the on-farm recharge, the grower, the GSA, the community. Decisions will be made on this on-farm recharge. There will be other issues that'll be worked out. Most of this will be worked out at the GSA level, and I think you're going to see slightly different approaches in different areas, depending on their own GSA policies. We've been working very closely with Helen Dahlke and DPR on the movement of pesticides, herbicides, and salts from the upper regions of our soil profile to the groundwater to be certain that we are providing the protection that our water, that our underground water deserves. For not only for ourselves but for the entire region. I'd rather know before we created a problem rather than later to have to deal with an issue with groundwater quality. We're also working with Scott Bradford and Salini. I always have trouble with her name. Harian from UC Davis on recharging floodwater through a series of 5 dry wells ranging anywhere from 50 to 125 feet deep. They require a very small footprint in comparison, and will provide groundwater recharge for the aquifer. And what this does, you're bypassing the upper regions of the soil profile and possibly any movement of pesticides or nitrates to groundwater. California has embraced on-farm floodwater capture and has made it a vital part of the water resilience portfolio here in California. Additional state and federal monies are definitely going to be needed to establish the infrastructure necessary to capture and move large quantities of floodwater to areas that really have not been served in the past with water. Typically, you know, they haven't had water rights in many of these areas, but we'll need the infrastructure to move the water to areas suitable for groundwater recharge when the water is available. You know, the acceptance by the ag community has been overwhelmingly supportive over the years, and even more so since the implementation of SGMA. Capturing high flood flows is now getting to be a more common practice here in California, especially with the change in climate that we've seen in recent years. You know,
I can't hear you. I'm on audio.
Sorry, we have someone speaking. So anyway, after completing the driest year in California history, we've had record rainfall in October, with the October storm shattering records. These types of extremes are more likely to be seen in the future, which makes floodwater capture so extremely important here. Droughts, like we just saw, along with the historic flooding, has been predicted for many years, and we're really beginning to live the predictions that were made earlier. As Eric Ekdahl said at our last CDFA meeting in October, the best time to build a floodwater capture project was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. So I'd like to thank you for allowing me to be part of the program together today, and open to answering questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. And with Orit's help, we'll be opening the Q&A and looking in the chat for questions, comments you'd like to share with Don and Nathan.
Thank you, Kamyar, and thank you, Nathan and Don. One thing that you said in the video was that urgency, that we have to make change for sustainability. And one way to do that is through education and outreach. And Nathan, your film is so accessible and such a wonderful way to learn about Floodmar that really is an important thing for us to have as we think about how do we share and inform and educate about it. So really appreciate that. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, great. So you know, we only have a few minutes, just a couple of minutes. If anybody wants to share something in the chat, your thoughts about the video or Don's remark, if anybody has a quick question, and we'll take Jenny's comment or question first, and then we'll get ready for the day. Go ahead, Jenny.
I want to jump the queue if anyone else has a question, but I have a question for Don. In your opinion, why aren't more landowners and farmers doing on-farm recharge? And is there something that this Floodmar community can do to expand or increase on-farm recharge?
Thank you. Good question. You have to have access to floodwater, number one, and you have to have the infrastructure in place. But you're right, there is some hesitancy. I think among some of the farmers, they have a large investment in some of these permanent plantings, and if you know, we've seen issues with just windstorms knocking trees down. Actually, the last month here, and so you add the water to the mix, and there is a greater possibility you could have damage to an orchard. And I just believe, though, that in many of the critically overdrafted basins, you really don't have an option. You really need to participate, and you need to be part of the solution to improving your groundwater.
Great, thank you. And with that call to action, I think we're going to move forward, and I want to talk a little bit about our 3 days together as we're moving forward. So on the next slide, want to, just as we get started, just want to thank the planning team. We had such great participation between DWR staff, tribal perspective, CDFA staff, our students, and the full facilitation team from Sac State. Really appreciate everybody joining in and helping make this a great forum. And next slide, we have the kind of the 3 days laid out, and very similar to what Camria said earlier. We really built the forum on those 5 areas that we covered at the 2019 forum. During the forum in 2019, we asked participants to think about what we can do collectively and individually to advance FloodMAR. And so those 5 themes really came out of those conversations. And 2 years now, we have an opportunity to see how we all have followed up on those actions, and also lesson learned and what that path forward looks like. And so starting in day 1 today is really all about relationship and collaboration and partnership opportunities. We're really excited to showcase the FloodMAR network and the work of the network, the initiatives around information sharing, and really expanding the conversation about how to implement FloodMAR. We also have some specific examples in the afternoon about partnerships and collaborations and their work. So we get a chance to learn about that. At the end of the day, we hope you all stay for happy hour to learn from our students. They've done some great work, and they will be having some lightning talks to share about their work. And again, just a reminder to check the on-demand content for more information. So from day 1, around the relationship building, the partnership and collaboration, we're going to switch gear in day 2, where we're really focusing on the technical aspect of implementing FloodMAR. So we are going to hear about the Merced River watershed study and implication to other watersheds. It's a whole suite of tools and modelings to think about climate change and how FloodMAR can be used to address some of those issues and risks. And then in the afternoon, we get to hear examples of specific projects, pilots, and research studies to expand on some of the questions that we have around FloodMAR implementation. In the afternoon, at the end of the day, we are going to have 2 different sessions for happy hour. We're going to have a great session on tribal water stories, videos, and reading of water-related stories. And we also, for those who are interested in diving deeper into the Merced study, we'll have a chance to have an informal conversation with the team. It's an opportunity for you to ask more questions and really think about how their work connect with the work that you're doing. And then once we've had that technical session in day 2, then day 3 is about what support is needed to ensure implementations. So we have a session in the morning around tools, guidance, technical support, funding, permitting, thinking about what can be done to support those who do want to implement FloodMAR. We have a special lunchtime speaker on day 3. We're going to have Dirk Charlie, who is the tribal liaison for the Delamono tribe, who will be talking about partnerships from a tribal perspective. And then we're going to wrap the day with thinking about what making connections looks like, and wanting to hear from all of you and engage in an informal conversation on how you're taking all that you've learned in the 3-day forum into the next step and into your work. So really looking forward to what's to come. And in the next slide, we have just a quick snapshot of today's agenda with the time. We're going to take a quick 5-minute break, and then we are going to start with our first topic with Mike Antos, who will be moderating this discussion. And in the afternoon, we'll have Matt Zidar, who's going to moderate topic 2 and come back to and stay on for happy hour. And so as we take a quick break, in the next slide, if you were not here for the informal networking before we started at 10 o'clock, we have just a quick Menti poll where we would love to hear from you. What do you hope to learn at the Floodmar Forum this year? So you can use the QR code. The Mentimeter poll is also, the link is in the chat. And we'll come back in a few minutes at 10:45 with Mike Antos. Thanks, everyone. Looking forward to our day. right, well, thank you for coming back, everyone. We're ready to get started. Tommy, thanks for the music. That was fun. I would like to introduce our first moderator, Mike Antis. Mike focuses his career on helping people and institutions navigate place, time, and culture and achieve sustainable, just, and equitable outcomes. His experience includes extensive work and research about effective engagement between agencies and communities, resulting in trusting relationships and long-term successes. He is an established thought leader on how water policy and planning can be open to members of overburdened communities, yielding empowerment and justice. And just to say that Mike has been our network guru, and it's been great working with Mike to bring about the network, which we will be hearing more about. And an important thing to say about Mike is that he is the fun factor in the network. That always has been great. So looking forward to our panel discussion, and I'll turn it over to you, Mike.
Thanks, Arit. I appreciate the introduction, and it often seems like I'm the one who's introducing the fun, but the great part about this network is that everybody there always rolls with it, and sometimes I'm not the source and it's others. And Lunch Mar is a great example of how the network and the group of people working on this have really prioritized the fun and friendships and partnerships that can happen because of it. So I just wanted to share my background image. I love this look from space down on the Central Valley. As a geographer, it reminds me how much of what we do and think about, especially today, is influenced by the shape of the world on which we stand. So it's I always love when this comes up on my Apple TV. So I think, Tommy, you're going to run slides for me?
I can go either way, sir. It's up
Why
to
don't you go ahead and click to next for me?
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to spend a few minutes introducing us, all of us, reintroducing some of you and introducing some of you to the FloodMar network. And I love this graphic here that Arit introduced to the whole process, the me, we flipping down. And I know some of you will recognize that image on the left. I've fuzzed it on purpose because it's like an insider handshake for FloodMar network. Next slide for me. So not long ago in a land now called California, we passed the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. And all of us in this room are familiar with it, some more than others, but it started this discussion about how to bring the groundwater basins, particularly in the Central Valley, but not just there, into a sustainable balance so that the water that they store is there when we need it. It really then traveled a couple of steps forward towards FloodMar, where CDFA first did a public forum on managed groundwater recharge. Of course, there's lots of places in the state, particularly the urban Southern California, that have been doing managed groundwater recharge for a century or so. And the Central Valley as well, there's many that have been doing it for a very long time. That led then to a FloodMar white paper, which then led to a research advisory committee being convened by DWR, which brought together a collection of folks to think through what were the gaps in our policies, our knowledge, and our technology that would permit a widespread application of FloodMar strategies in the Central Valley. And that research advisory committee resulted in a research and data development plan being released just short of the 2019 public forum, which we heard about a little bit today during our introductions. So the trajectory of finally acknowledging the challenge we faced on groundwater sustainability and moving through to FloodMar really is worth reflecting on as part of the history that we are all living within. Next slide. So what was really interesting about the Research Advisory Committee's plan is that it pursued these 13 subcommittee themes. So these are the themes of issues that the Research Advisory Committee felt were necessary containers within which the challenges and opportunities we faced still sat. And I was one of the co-chairs of one of the subcommittees, the People and Water Committee. but this group of people worked together as a whole committee, but then also in these subcommittees to suss out what were the information gaps, the policies that needed to be developed, the data that needed to be developed, tools, resources, and understanding. From those 13 committees came the top 10 priorities from each subcommittee, which of course is 130 gaps of information or needs. And then because 130 is a remarkably large number for this sort of thing, the facilitators drove us towards picking our top 3 from each. So that resulted in 39 priority action items from each of the subcommittees. That became the key organizing principle within the research and data development plan. At the final meeting of the committee, as all of us were sitting and looking at what the sum of our work had created, one of the things we recognized was not among those themes, but was so obvious once we noticed it, was that the getting together all of these interdisciplinary knowledge sets once in a while to talk about the challenges that we each were considering how to confront and sparking off of each other in that way was a key outcome from that time together as research advisory committee. So in the end, the report not only put these 39 priority actions forward, but it also put forward the idea that a network needed to be sustained, built from the research advisory committee, but clearly not just them, that would help move Floodmar forward, because there are so many things that need to be thought through and figured out, and so many unique challenges and opportunities, and so many people involved one way or another. The network needed to be a strong component of how Floodmar worked its way forward. Next slide. So when the Floodmar network got together, it was really thinking about how this plan could be a starting point. The research and data development plan would be a starting point of working forward towards more widespread use of Floodmar. But to expand and accelerate that project of developing how and where and when to use Floodmar, the network would really step in and help people stay in touch with each other as progress was made. The idea that the network would be the source of collaboration to help us not only get the research and data development plan enacted, but also as Floodmar grew, the network would be the spot where people would be able to contact each other and again, spark off of each other the same way that the RAC did. Next slide. So when you look at this flow, you see that not only the first arrow there, where we started with the Sigma and worked our way through to that 2019 public forum, but since then, what's happened is the network has convened across 3 workshops that has been a collaborative workshop space, all of them handled really well by CSU, and in a Miro space where people were able to jot ideas and flows. And many of you I know have participated, and I think you'd agree that those have been really productive and enriching and really enlivening opportunities to partner together. So those 3 workshops resulted in 4 initiatives of the network being enacted about 6 months ago, I believe. And that brings us to today. Next slide. So those 4 network initiatives, you'll hear from the leads of those initiatives, the coordinator, the anchor, as the network has come to call them. And these 4 network initiatives were really grown organically from the group getting together and saying, where are the key places for the network to provide that connective value that everyone envisioned it could do? And so we'll go one at a time through this list, and people will give a little presentation, and I will go back to being a straight moderator instead of presenter. But I wanted you all to see this graphic. And I think we'll first hear from Jenny Marr, who will be talking about the initiative work group that's been putting together a communication plan for Floodmar and the Floodmar network. And then second, we'll hear from Megan Murray, who's among a group of anchors who have been helping establish a tool or a capacity to assess progress across the full breadth of what Floodmar needs to achieve to see more widespread implementation. Next, we'll hear from Philip and Adam, who have been working with an initiative that's seeking to cultivate knowledge about what information there is and what information is needed and how to connect those dots. And then last, we'll hear from Aisha, who will talk a little bit about how the initiative that's been thinking about how to share the collective wisdom and knowledge that's being produced and held by the network and all those who are working on FloodMar. So that's the panel. I'm really excited to introduce all of them. And I think I'll do an introduction one at a time as it's your turn. So Jenny, do you want to come on screen? And Tomi, do you want to get over to Jenny's slides if she has any? And of course, all of you,
Yes, of course.
everybody knows Jenny, but I'll just read it like it's real. So Jenny's a supervising engineer with California Department of Water Resources Division of Planning. She's currently acting as the lead of the communication and engagement and pilot studies for both FloodMar, and she's a co-coordinator of the FloodMar network. She's also a lead author on the Central Valley Flood Protection Plan, 2022 plan, and the 2023 California Water Plan. So Jenny is busy and excited to share a little bit about the FIRST initiative's work over the last set of months. Go ahead, Jenny.
Thanks, Mike. Good morning, everybody. I'm here to talk about our initiative on the communications plan. Like Mike, I wanted to start out with this, inspirational image. So one of the first things I did was I Googled communication plan and thought like a quote, an image, clip art, something will come up that will just inspire all of us and start this off on a great note. Well, this clip art with the megaphone was the second option that showed up in a Google search. And I thought, this kind of communication works well in my family where we're all very loud talkers. I think for the FloodMar network, we can certainly do better. So my first question to you, and this is a Zoom poll, before today, were you aware of the FloodMar network? And you get one answer. Yes, I was aware and I'm a member. Yes, I was aware and I'm not a member. No, I'd like to join. And no, I'm not interested in joining. And let us know in chat how we could encourage you or inspire you to join. So I'm seeing the results pop up. We've got a lot of folks who are members, we have a lot of folks that are aware of it, and some no, I'd like to joins. Let's see. Hey, we don't have any no, I'm not interested in joining. So that's fantastic. But I will say that those who are interested in joining, we already see you as part of the network. By participating today, you are definitely part of the connective tissue that makes up the network and part of the collective body and moving FloodMar forward. But if you would like to join officially, shoot me a message in chat or an email later. I hope somebody's shared results ahead of me. I'm not quite sure if I have absolute control. So Tomi, can you let me know if they've seen the results and if I can move on?
Yeah, hold on one second. It looks like somebody inadvertently closed the poll and launched it. So we don't actually have a lot of people that recompleted it, but I will share with the 6 folks that we did on it. So we do apologize. We were getting a lot of folks completing it. And so Jenny, I don't know if you want me to relaunch one more time or we can move on.
Yeah, let's relaunch it. Let's make this official.
Okay, very good.
And then Tomi, you close it, and I might just be clicking buttons, so maybe I inadvertently did something.
No worry, I'm going to relaunch the poll, everyone, right now.
And now everyone already knows the answer, so it should be 100% yes, I'm a member, right? Great. It seems even with more participation, we're still seeing the same trends. Everyone's aware or at least interested. Great, thanks, Tomi, we can close it.
Very good, I will go ahead and close it. And would you like to go ahead and share the results as well then?
Perfect.
And here you go.
Great, thanks all. Thanks for bearing with us. All right. So as I said, you're already a part of the connective tissue by participating in this public forum. We are really developing this communication plan to be that connective tissue, to be those lines in between the members of how we work with each other and what the culture of the network is. So we've got a few plan components. We've got a network purpose and value statement that was developed in workshop 1. We have goals and objectives, principles, and tools and venues that have been the primary focus of the initiative team working on the communication plan. In its essence, our purpose in being a network is that we're building relationships. We're taking our own experiences and expertise and bringing it to the larger community to expand FloodMAR knowledge and better support and expand project implementation. So our communication goals, there's 4 primary, and in short, position the FloodMAR network members as credible resources, promote opportunities for connections and partnerships, facilitate sharing of information, and really to support each other in the work that we're doing. And that's the work that we're doing separately and together. So we've got some communication principles and how we're going to do our work. A couple examples. Transparency. We'll provide our references, our supporting data, our reproducible workflows to promote our transparency and credibility. We'll be inclusive, so actively providing opportunities for feedback to promote dialogue and engagement, and really have that sense of belonging and empowerment for our network members. And another good example is coordination. Something we're doing all the next 3 days, coordinate with other related network and collaborative efforts to effectively expand information sharing beyond just our FloodMAR membership. So I've got another poll that I won't mess up this time. So Tommy, feel free to bring that up. What communication tools and venues would you be most likely to participate in? And pick as many as you would participate in. Not, I might participate, you would definitely participate. So we can help prioritize some of our communication tools. So we have a member SharePoint site. We have already done some surveys, probably continue to do some surveys if they're effective. The FloodMAR hub, a potential online hub for FloodMAR information that you'll hear about in a little bit. Focus groups, Speakers Bureau, Skills Bank, workshop and roundtable discussion, field tours and demonstration, big on social media, and anything else that you can think of. And please add other comments in the chat. So it looks like we're still getting a few responses, so I won't close it yet. Workshops and roundtables seem to be popular. FloodMAR hub, field tours and demonstrations. Great. So I'm going to end the poll in 3, 2, 1 and share the results. Oh. So folks can see workshops, roundtables, field tours, and demonstrations. So really that time to get together and learn from each other seems to be priorities for this group. Thank you for that.
And Jenny, I'll stop sharing.
Okay, thank you. And this is my last slide. So Mike showed a variation of this slide. This is just the 4 initiatives and how they connect together. The communication plan is really that overarching goals, principles, and approaches. Our outcomes of the other three initiatives kind of build on each other, and what we know and what we know we don't know. What do practitioners need or say the most important information to them, and how do we tease that out? And then once we've teased out the most important information, where do we put it? And that's the FloodMAR hub. And the last 2 gray boxes is the network's made up of our initiatives, of what our members want to volunteer and work on. And so the next meeting, we'll be talking about if there's new initiatives that you'd like to pursue as a member of the network or in partnership with the network. So look forward to continuing the conversation, and I'll turn it back over to Mike.
Thanks, Jenny. That's great. Tommy, can you leave that up just for a second?
Yes, sir.
I really appreciate what this initiative has achieved. This is really fantastic to see. The sort of organizing principle behind the network from the very beginning has been this idea of that everyone gives so that everyone can get. You give a little and you get a lot in return. And it's really clear that this initiative has kind of embedded that in the principles of the network, is that everyone is getting a little. I'm getting a lot from giving a little, which is really fantastic. And that's the idea here, is that this network helps everyone be better at what they were going to do anyway, because they're in touch with others and they can get guidance and help and enthusiasm and whatnot. So that's really great. Thanks, Jenny, for that presentation. Okay, Tommy, on to the next set of slides. And allow me to introduce my colleague, Megan Murray. She's a water resources planner at Stantec in the Sacramento office. She's currently working on groundwater sustainability planning and the development of groundwater trading safeguards for the environment, small farms, and communities. And she's here to present as one of the anchors of the Initiative 1. Yeah, we're doing them out of order because we were playful that way. Megan, why don't you take it away on Initiative 1?
Great. Thank you, Mike, for that introduction. And as he said, I am just one of the co-anchors for this initiative. I'd also like to take a moment to thank my other co-anchors, which are Daniel Mountjoy and Glenn Lowe, as well as everyone who's participated in Initiative 1 meetings. We've had a couple of meetings and really appreciate the input that we've received. So I think Tommy's going to give me access to move the slides.
Yeah, Megan, I've given you access. It
Perfect.
says just waiting. And so it might take initially a couple seconds for it to engage. Let me know if it's not coming up. You should be able to just click on it on your toolbar and it should pop up for you.
Okay. While we're waiting for that here to come over, I'm going to put out there that I'm sorry if my dog barks. Our landscapers decide today to come for the first time and start a huge project. And so right now I've given her the dog version of an iPad, but who knows how long it will last. So hopefully I'll get through my slides here.
There you go. It says you have control now.
Okay.
Yep, I see. There it is.
There we go. Okay, excellent.
All right.
So initiative number 1 is all about assessing progress. And I saw in the Mentimeter, when we were all talking about what we wanted to get out of these next 3 days, there are a lot of questions about, what is going on in California? What are the successes as it comes to flood mar? What are the bottlenecks? And that's really what this initiative is trying to get at, is we're trying to identify what's going on in the world of flood mar, who's working together, so that we can build that body of knowledge that the network is after in the hopes of supporting flood mar implementation. And so, we're doing this to really help the network in that first step of building that body of knowledge so that they are all better for it, and building connections, and as well as determining and communicating priorities, highlighting successes, as well as identifying gaps. And so this is kind of a big question and a big effort, but we started to break it down and figure out, how do we plan to do this? And we realized that as an initiative, we could sit together in a room and try to figure this out together, just a handful of us, but really we wanted to engage the initiative or the network, as well as people who are tangential to the network. As Jenny said, today you're all part of that connective fiber. So we decided to start with a framework of the research and data development plan that Mike mentioned earlier, and use those 39 priority action items as kind of the framework to understand, okay, this is where we said the work needs to happen. What is really happening there, and what are we doing? And are those priority action items that we said were priorities a few years ago, are they still priorities? And maybe have new priorities come up. So we used the priority action items as a framework to guide our effort. Then we also created a survey. So we sent the survey out to the network, and we also asked, if you know someone who's not in the network, please send this over to them. And I'll get into the survey results here in a minute. And then we want to have a report out. And the report out, we haven't figured out yet what the report out will look like. It can be something from a high glossy kind of fun cover page with highlighted information. It could be a dashboard, or it could be something as simple as an interactive database. But ultimately, we want this to be something that's useful to you all. You took the time to put in information to the survey, and the more people who put it in, the better of the survey will be and the results that come out of it. So, for example, if you're interested in crop suitability and want to know someone who's working on that in Tulare County, we want to be able to have that information and provide that to you. And so we want it to be visible, we want it to be current and transparent, all of those things that Jenny mentioned earlier is kind of the network's overall arching goals. And so, that's kind of a little bit overview of what the Initiative One's vision is. So now getting into the survey. So we had the survey open from October 5th through October 18th, and it was a beta survey. And by that, I mean, we were trying to test, were we asking the right questions? Were we getting the information that we were hoping to get? And were the questions easy to understand? Were people actually engaging with this? And we got a lot of good responses. And so we've now tweaked it a little bit to find a few more questions and have a new version of that ready to share, which I will get into a little bit later. And then for how we structured the survey, we asked people to share an effort, and we deliberately chose the word effort because we know that Floodmar is an integrative and interdisciplinary body that of research. And so it can be research, but it can also be things like policy or advocacy or economic analyses. And so we wanted anyone who's involved in Floodmar in whatever way to feel like that they had a place to respond to this survey, because we want to know the entire breadth of what's going on in Floodmar. So in this beta survey, we got 21 responses and 28 unique efforts shared. And I say unique because we had a couple of duplicates, but that's okay because we do want people to feel that they can answer this survey. So I'm just going to share a few results from this beta survey, and just keep in mind that this is a beta and that we would like to get more information as well. So the kind of fun way to start this off is we ask people, what's the status of your work and your effort? And as you can see in the bar graph on the left, that most people are kind of far along in their work, which is exciting to see that people are progressing, and that's a really good, fun thing to share. And then we asked them a question about how happy they are with their progress. And good news all around is that we've got smiley faces and people are really happy with how their work is going, which is a good story to share and communicate with others. So now we also wanted to know who's working on Floodmar. And so we asked people to identify what affiliation they represent. And from the survey results, we had most people with the environmental organizations. Oh, it looks like I've lost some pop-ups, but the environmental organizations who responded are the Sustainable Conservation, the Nature Conservancy, and the River Project, some of whom will be presenting later during the forum. And then the next biggest group was academia, the Lawrence Livermore Laboratory, CSU Fresno, UC Davis, and UC San Diego. And as you can see that there are that navy bar at the top, that's state government, and then you've got a local government. I think the green bar was supposed to be other, but this is, again, we want to have a more broad understanding of who's actually doing the work. And so hopefully these numbers will get more, local government, we know GSAs are working on this, more state agencies are involved. So these numbers are likely to shift. Then, oh, this is interesting. So then we asked, what type of effort? So we wanted to know what, like I said, effort is like this all-encompassing term, but we wanted to know specifically what people are working on. And the vast majority of people, 45% said that they're working on research and analysis. And then the other large chunk was decision support tools. But then that green piece, which is a little bit hard to read, sorry about that, is something called other. And we asked people, what else out there are you working on? And that was a really interesting and informative thing. People said they're working on advocacy, they're working on supporting GSAs, they're working on fundraising. And so as we can see, Floodmar is a really broad topic. And so we're happy to hear that there's a whole lot going on. So as Mike mentioned, the research and data development plan had these 13 themes. And so we wanted to get a sense of where's the momentum? Where are people really spending their time on FloodMar? And are these the kinds of things that should be the focus? And those are questions we'll take, back to the network and have the network. But we're just providing this information as an initiative to say, okay, we see a lot of energy and momentum around these things. And so as you can see from this bubble graph here, that recharge and extraction methods and measures, as well as soils, geology, and aquifer characterization are those really big areas of focus. But as a reminder, as always, that this is just a sample. And we're hoping that as we get more information, we'll see these numbers shift around. Or it's all entirely possible that the numbers, while they might grow, that the areas of focus might stay the same. And so that's also really interesting information that we want to know as well. So here I have listed all of the projects or the efforts that we've had a chance to learn about so far. Some of these, whether that's the Merced FloodMar or the Terra Nova work, you'll have heard about before with Don Cameron, or you'll later about in the forum. And so this is just an initial list of all of the people who've responded back to our survey. So if you don't see your project and you'd like to be a part of the survey, and you see now the value of what we're trying to accomplish, we've actually reopened the survey, and we have a QR code as well as a URL. And so we invite you to take the survey. It's open now. It'll be open through Thanksgiving. And so after we're done, then the initiative one is going to reconvene. And if you would like to be a part of that process of what to do with all of the information and how you would like to see it used, we invite you to join initiative one. So we hope that we build this robust data set and that it's actually really useful to you all. So hopefully maybe sometime during a breakout or during your lunch opportunity that you can take the survey. So that is all that I have today, and I will turn it back over to Mike.
Thanks, Megan. Really great presentation. And I see that Jenny just put the link in chat, and I invite all of you to open it in a background tab and save it for later, because there's more great talks to hear before you go off and hurry to get your stuff put in. So appreciate that, Megan, from initiative number one. And now we're heading over to Cultivating Knowledge Initiative, and we're having a co-presentation from Adam Hutchinson and Philip Backend. Philip has about 30 years of experience conducting applied research and developing management practices and strategies. He's also pioneered the development of on-farm recharge, shallow flooding of active farmlands using available surface. Presenting with us today, and his partner in crime here is Adam Hutchinson. He's a recharge planning manager at Orange County Water District in Southern California. He has over 30 years experience. He's also a professional geologist and certified hydrogeologist in the state of California. And I will turn it over to the two of you to talk about the next initiative.
Fantastic. Can you hear me okay?
Sure can, Adam. Go ahead.
Oh, great. Good morning, everyone. It's really great to see all of you. Yeah, so Jenny did a great job outlining laying out the communication plan for the network. And this diagram here is kind of just another way of envisioning the network. And cultivating knowledge is really about trying to get out the information needed to advance the FloodMar network. People on the ground, what are you guys doing? How can we help? What can the network do to really move things forward? And so next slide. So that's really our mission in cultivating knowledge. And what we thought we would do is have a focus group of practitioners, primarily the GSAs. They're the ones that have to comply with Sigma. They're the ones that really need to put this into practice to make it happen in their areas. So rather than speculate on what we needed to do, we said, well, let's go out and talk to the people that would implement or need this information and use it to their benefit. And so what we did is we had a listening session last week, and it kind of had two parts to it. The first was sharing examples of FloodMar projects and lessons learned from existing projects going on to kind of tee up the discussion on the broader group, and discussing the need for information opportunities to advance floodmar in their specific areas. And then also start that process of connecting these different GSAs with the network itself. And that's really the value in the network, is getting connected with different people around the state and around the world that are doing floodmar. So next slide. So Phil did a great job putting this map together, kind of showing this broad scope of the different agencies we had involved in the focus group from all over the state. And that's really important because there's so many different challenges with respect to the hydrologic conditions, and every area is battling their own challenges and ways to implement floodmar. So that was really valuable to have this wide distribution of GSAs, and also critically overdrafted basins, the ones that really need to get going sooner than anyone else. So we had a bunch of them represented. So thank you all that participated. Really appreciated that you did. So next slide. So what we did to kind of tee off the discussion is had 3 different presenters quickly cover their projects and what they were doing. We have Paul Weghorst of Irvine Ranch Water District talking about some collaboration that they're doing with people in the Kern County area, the Rio Bravo Storage District and others. And it's a real good idea, a real good example of urban versus agricultural cooperation and finding the win-win for both agencies. So that was really a great presentation by Paul. And then Christine Sicky did one on the YOLO groundwater basin or agency, talking about water rights. They did a lot of temporary water rights permits with the regional board to do floodmar, and what are the challenges in kind of converting that to a long-term process and the cost particularly behind that. And then Aaron Fukuda in Mid-Kauai GSA talked about some of the challenges in a critically overdrafted basin, and that was very interesting. A lot of different challenges there with working with the growers and getting their plan implemented. So those are the 3 presentations we had in our focus group. So next slide. So I think what we did here is Bill did a great job kind of outlining some of the key words that were identified in the chat function in terms of what were people really asking about when all these presentations were being provided. So you kind of see the different words that came up in the chat. You know, temporary water rights permits, cost were really big, and some of the other keywords there you can see on the screen. So I'm going to hand it over to Phil, and he's going to kind of walk you through some of the different polls that we had and kind of future steps and where we're going to go from here. So Phil, take it away.
Thanks, Adam. So I'm Phil Bichond, and I'm been working with Adam on this with a lot of help from DWR and CSUS as well. So the next slide. So we as part of this focus group that Adam talked about, at the end of it, we had a poll on trying to understand people's where they were on floodmar, who they were, and stuff like that. The main goal here on this initiative, as Adam brought up, was to reach out to the GSAs and really try to get a feel for what's going on at the local level and what their needs are and such. So this first poll was whether they were critical or high, or were they a medium priority basin, or were they someone else? And we had targeted in our focus group trying to reach out to critically and high priority basins. And you can see that we did that pretty well. But we were also interested in the medium priority basins. We had those as well. So, you know, we felt like we got a good cross section of folks. The next slide. We were also interested in trying to understand where people were going with their floodmar type projects that they were implementing, and whether or not they were on farm recharge or working landscapes or dedicated basins. Can you hit that slide? So we had 80% of the respondents who had floodmar projects going on. They were doing on-farm recharge. 40% were doing working landscapes, and the rest And then there were 60% were doing dedicated basis. Now any agency could answer multiple, could provide multiple answers. So you can see the distribution of work generally across this group of agencies who are participating. Next. And interestingly, I thought was that there was kind of even split on all these projects between like what someone would consider a large scale floodmar project and a small scale floodmar project. Next slide. We also asked about what their focus of effort was, because there's a lot of things that go into making a floodmar project, and they can be, there's the conveyance elements, there's the capture and recharge elements. It's whether you're focusing on hard infrastructure improvements and capital investments, or whether you're focusing on training and management. Next. So you can see that those first two are about where they were putting their focus on, and at this point, there's a lot of there's more effort on conveyance than there is on actual infrastructure for improving capture and recharge. Next. And then when you look at whether they've gotten to the point of whether they're doing capital investments in infrastructure and training and management, most of it, when they have got to that point, is on sort of hard infrastructure improvements, so capital and infrastructure, and less so on the soft infrastructure improvements, such as training and management practices. And when you think about sort of the underlying concept behind floodmar, where you have at the local level, you're having private landowners and farmers and landscape managers implementing recharge practices, and these concerns that have been brought up previously about water quality and performance and any other issue. It's important that training and management practices at some point get more interest. Next slide. So we asked what people were thinking of doing next. And because we were trying to understand how interested people were in this initiative and how successful we had been in reaching out to the GSAs. And so you can see on the right, there's a lot of interest in moving forward, and this made us feel pretty good about this focus group. There was a lot of interest in having ongoing GSA and floodmar conversations. There was a lot of interest in implementing floodmar projects in the regions. There's a lot of interest in joining the network. Next slide. So these are some thoughts, some general closing thoughts, and I've just pretty much talked through them on the last slide. There's a lot of interest in the GSAs, in the network, and continuing the conversation. There's a lot of the first focus group meeting was well received and shared, and a lot of information shared. It was just one focus group. We did not have sufficient time to dig deeper into the opportunities and constraints behind floodmar at the local level, and we did not have breakout sessions at that focus group. So it suggests that more focus groups are needed. And then the positive response in general suggested that this could be a model for reaching out to other key local groups, such as flood organizations or wildlife, flood managers or wildlife organizations and things like that. Next slide. So the next steps, we haven't, this is sort of the next step, pre-next step, conclusion on next steps. We're going to be reviewing the potential tools for advancing the GSA and floodmar network conversation. So it might be, we're going to be having them join those who are interested join the network, and also include them in LunchMart listservs. And then, sharing projects and trying to figure out how to continue the conversation is an important part. Considering this approach for other groups, and one of the last things that we kind of talked about in our meeting was sort of an activist agenda by the network. having, taking an active role in developing forums and outreach, working with state agencies, capacity building, versus a more sort of passive role where we are here as a service when called upon, essentially, or when asked for. And given the sort of the complexities and challenges behind FloodMAR implementation and the interest that we had from the focus group, it seems like an activist agenda might be a good idea. Next slide. I think that's, yeah. So there's some poll questions that I think have been put out there. Possibly.
Hey, Tommy, maybe go back one.
Yeah, hold on a sec here. Let me double check. Let me double check on the polls here. Yes, hold on. Because we added them later, they got scrolled down to the bottom. So let me go ahead and launch them right now. And then for everyone, these are fairly lengthy. So if you don't see the whole question answering, and I'll go ahead and launch it, please just open the widget, the poll widget larger. And then if you could do me a favor for our co-hosts on there, please do not touch the poll because that's what happened earlier. So, and you'll see this is two parts. So Phil, go ahead and take it away on the first one. And then the second one is just have to scroll bar down to see it. And when you're ready, I'll share the results for you.
Okay, thanks. So the first one was, what are local outreach elements that you feel the network should consider? And this is sort of in the context of sort of an activist agenda, if people are at all interested in that. So these are some of the things that we put out there: counting GSA, continuing the focus groups, facilitating communication with state agencies, local outreach opportunities, sharing project information, and other, and all that. Oh, there's a single choice here. So I guess your highest priority. And then the second one is, as a network member, do you currently work regularly with local GSAs regarding FloodMAR? And then there's, oh, Tommy, there's an error in this. There's as a network member, we had expected that to be a separate question. So just for number 2, just hit the yes, no, or not sure, I guess.
Sorry, Phil. So as a network member, was that supposed to be open-ended?
Yeah, well, I was hoping actually the first one was going to be open-ended too, but as a network member, we had 2. One was, are you working with GSAs? And the second one was, were you working with flood managers? So, but they were 2 and 3 were combined into a single one. So,
got it.
It's okay. You've had a lot going on.
Thank you.
So,
Looks like the response rate has slowed down, Tommy.
Yes, sir. Okay, I'll go ahead and end the poll. Oh, whoa, no. The minute I say that, some folks just aren't coming there. So remember, so on the bottom there, yeah, just keep scrolling down on there, and that would be great. And now it looks like it's evened out. So I will go ahead and end the poll now and share the results. And here you go.
Great. So, so I'm not going to say much about it, except that on this, it's really interesting that people are still, the continuing GSA focus groups is the highest of the interested ones, and in all of them, well, the top 3, it generally fair amount of interest in facilitating the communication with the agencies and conducting local outreach. And then for the second one, it looks like we have some people communicating with GSAs and some people communicating with the flood folks as well. But so there's 38% of people communicating with GSAs, 13% are communicating with flood managers, and then the rest of everybody else is communicating with no one. at the neither of those at the local level. Not that they might not be communicating with environmental groups or others, but the two sort of, well, the GSAs are the big timeline driver, and the flood managers, of course, are the other end of climate change. So anyway, that's all we have.
Thanks, Phil and Adam. I really appreciate it. This is another signal for how valuable the network is starting to become. When you think about a network, there's the nodes, and then there's the lines between the nodes. And Floodmar Network has always sought to make those lines stronger and more resilient between the various nodes of activity, and whether that's GSAs and flood managers or environmental managers, and helping connect everyone together so that their work can be more efficient or effective or productive or more integrated is really the outcome. And we're clearly seeing this. And Megan and I were chatting on the side that we clearly need to send the survey to your mailing list, Phil. Okay, so our last presenter, before we have a little time for Q&A and then a little time for breakout, is Aisha Massel from Sustainable Conservation. She has over 20 years experience working with in sustainable agriculture, water reuse systems, and river restoration. And she facilitates networks of collaboration that integrates technical knowledge in support of groundwater sustainability statewide. She gets to work with, I would say it that way, she gets to work with and mentor teams that include agencies, growers, partner NGOs, and others. So Aisha, do you want to take us home with the final initiative?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mike and everyone. My name is Aisha Massel. I work at Sustainable Conservation, and I'm talking today about the Floodmar Hub. So.
Then Aisha, I gave you control, and it says you're controlling the screen. So just give it a couple seconds, and then if you left click or use your arrow key, it should start advancing your slides for you.
It's not quite working yet.
There it goes.
There we go. All right. So what is a Floodmar Hub? Well, it's an online community where we can share our resources. And this really arose out of a need to share our knowledge via a public online presence. Some of you may know that we already have a SharePoint site where we're working kind of within the network, but we need something that, when someone uses a search engine for Floodmar, they can find a bunch of information and resources online. And so the process really came out of a series of work group meetings that came out of, I think Mike mentioned back in the spring, we had those 4 initiatives set up. And so we met about 4 or 5 times since then. We developed a survey that we sent out to network participants about, what it is you want out of a website. And then we analyzed those results and presented it to the network at the end of August. And we developed also out of that a website proposal that kind of limited the scope, because as you can imagine, people want a lot of things and you can't maybe do everything. And so we kind of narrowed that scope a little bit, and we proposed to develop a beta version of this website for this network to look at. And then once we get some feedback and really develop the content, then go public with it. So the network itself, the main takeaway, during that August 31st meeting was that people really want this website online soon. They don't want it, to be perfect in 3 years. They want it maybe imperfect now. And that there is a need to have a home for Floodmar online. And so today we're just going to talk a little bit about our website structure that we developed since then as a proposal. This is not final, and also some next steps. So, before we get into the structure itself, we had some rules of thumb is that you don't want to have too many options. Like when you hover over a tab and you have 20 options, people's eyes just glaze over. And so having kind of a limited number of options at any one point. We want to display visuals and photos wherever possible, which really helps us to explain complex concepts in simple terms. We also want to use internally referenced links. So even though maybe a document is housed in one location on the website, it can be accessed from different areas on the website. and just have some basic functionality such as keyword search and contact information. And, part of our survey, a lot of people really wanted a calendar of events, news, blog posts, message boards, social media, a bunch of things. And we did not include that in this round, though I have some information at the end of this presentation that we might want to rethink that. And basically the reasoning is because that takes a lot of updates and moderators to manage content. And so we were aiming more for like a quarterly or maybe a monthly or weekly update maximum. And so it wasn't just such a huge lift to manage this website. We could debate that, but some workarounds, we could have links to external websites that have those functions. We can have social media pages, etc. There's ways that we don't have to host it, but we can keep people current. And so with that, I'll go into the website structure that we developed. This is based on, just some simple rules of, you develop basically your overarching tabs, your concepts. And this is an example website that I worked on when I was at UC Berkeley and went through this process, and it was very illuminating. And you just try to make things simple, easy to navigate so people can find their way around a website. So this is based on here. So you can see these tabs at the top. And if you hover over this, this would have a list of those 5 to 6 topics max under each of these. So in that same way, you can see how this is just a mock-up of a website where you hover over this and there would be a drop-down list. So I'll get into it. So here's the home as a landing page. There's a list of topics here, and then I'll click on it and you can see what each of these contain. So of course, there's a landing page with brief information. There's what is Floodmar? So talking about the definition of Floodmar itself, Floodmar concepts, including visuals, like that video we saw earlier would be great here. And also links to some maybe fundamental papers, like the white paper and the research and data development plan that Mike was talking about earlier. Also talking a little bit about what is a Floodmar network itself, about our vision, our mission, our goals. And then here we would do that kind of interlinked links to the Get Involved page where we can get more into who we are. But here's just kind of a brief overview. And then frequently asked questions. We can develop this list with the network, and it might also be a guide to this website. Now we could debate that FAQs could be somewhere else, but this is where we have it landed for now. We go into the tab of projects. This is case studies were really important for folks to really, I guess, tell the story of how people go about doing Floodmar. And from our group, some ideas included, this list of topics like permeability and SAGB ranking and looking at costs and logistics, duration and timing of flooding events. So this is where we can really tell a lot of our stories. And there's also the project tracking or dashboard. And this is really based on efforts by Initiative 1 that is tracking the progress of our 39 priority actions or 130 top priorities, things like that. And here we would include fact sheets, and we'd have a list of the current projects and listed by project phase, where they are in the process, or by region or by recharge method. And so some way to track all the projects going on. This would be a great way to bring in an interactive map that kind of tracks this somehow linked within its dashboard. But one thing to note is that both of these would really require periodic updates. So we would need to have some kind of commitment to work on that over time. So just a couple of notes on maps. There's different levels of effort we could put into this. There's a lower level of effort, and when I say that, it doesn't mean it's a low level of effort. It's just lower, relatively speaking. It still takes work. So here is a multibenefitproject.org website. There's a bunch of projects here listed, highlighted number 6, which is the Grasslands Floodplain Restoration Project. You basically click on that, you get this opening here, and then a fact sheet, which you can click on and learn more about the project itself. That's pretty static. And then you go into a higher level of effort. This is wateractionhub.org. All of these wrenches represent projects. You click on it, you get this kind of window, tells you a little bit of information, and then you click on learn more, and you get, this is the phase where the project is at this point, but then you have all these different tabs where you can really get into details on this particular project. So it's just something to consider as we think about mapping tools. Now moving on to the next tab, resources. This is our drop-down list, and for guidance, what we're thinking here is this is really information that is developed by the network itself. So these might be priority topics that are informed by the Initiative 3, which is what Philip and I'm sorry, the previous presentation right here. And we could have here fact sheets, papers, how-to guidance, and this is really coming from us. Now, when we get to the tools and data section, we're thinking this is really externally generated information. So it's links to water data, like let's say the GAMA website, other types of climate data. Now, there are definitely some folks who were originally envisioning this website as being much more data heavy. And I'll talk about that option in a second, but in this iteration, we're thinking this is just links to others, folks, websites. And this could also include software, models, and maps, just stuff that where people really want to get really into the details, they can find it here. There's also some funding resources, so links to relevant sites, maybe usual suspects in terms of where you could get funding, as well as guidance related to funding. Funding specifically floodmar projects. And then finally here, references. This is, again, is externally generated information. So it's things like the water resilience portfolio, human right to water, and then just looking at other kind of related research and studies conducted by various folks. And so for all of this, one thing that really came clear is we want a searchable list of resources, maybe some kind of library. And you can search by different, by agency or organization, topic, that type of thing. So moving on, right here, sorry. This is, if we really want to get into becoming more of a data source ourselves, it's kind of its own level of effort. And so it's something we could do, but I think it would take some time to get there. And here, this is from the Internet of Water. This is what they offer. But you can see all these steps that it takes to kind of crowdsource a lot of data and then make it in a form that people can actually use into a free and open water data specific search engine, which would be great. It's just going to take some effort to get there. So going on to this other tab, this is the research tab. And basically this shows all of those 13 subcommittees that were developed under the Research Advisory Committee. And so these are kind of lumped together. So you find in water availability, you have hydrology, reservoirs, and conveyance. In site suitability, you have these subtopic areas, subcommittee areas. People in the environment, of course, is ecosystems and people. And then you have these other three. So total, we have 13. And in terms of what would be here, I think that's still to be determined, but we felt that this was a really important part of our floodmar network, this kind of research component, the underpinnings. And so, looking at how it differs from resources, we're probably going to have to work that out a little bit. And then finally, getting involved. This is real important for anyone coming to this website, talking a little bit more about the floodmar network, who we are, our organizations, and also information from the communications plan that Jenny was talking about. So this is things like Lunchmar, public forums, and how to get involved in the network itself. And of course, our contact, email contact, joining a listserv, potentially joining our SharePoint. Some of this requires, some vetting. So people will need to interface with people there. And finally, going on to next steps is who will be the website development lead. And DWR has said a few times that they do not want to be the lead. They don't think they're suitable, nor maybe even other government agencies. And so we're thinking maybe an academic institution or an NGO would be the most suitable. And this lead could either act as a pass-through to receive and distribute money, or just be more involved in the website development and maintenance itself. And so the budget really depends on levels of effort. And so if we're all volunteering our time, it's great. But how long will that take versus getting consultants to really help us develop this? And more on that in a second. And then also who's going to pay for it? So grants for communication can be difficult to obtain. And maybe we could crowdsource through our Floodmar network. And so I wanted to put up this contact list for anyone that's interested in this effort, has ideas, leads, opinions, and or wants to join this. But before, I'm going to go back to the slide, and I just want to say one more thing is literally over the weekend, we got an amazing windfall of someone, Bob Hollis of Mobius Intelligent Systems, who's agreed to make our website for us for free. He just has a passion for volunteering, and we talked a bit, and he already built this up. So this is actually available at floodmar.org. He also, he got that domain name. He also has .net and .com, so we've got it. And this basically is a dummy website that has this presentation here, and you can just kind of click through those different tabs. It's not in stone, so if we want to reorganize this, that's fine. But if you click on the Get Involved tab at the very end and go to the bottom, you'll see more information about how this website is hosted. And I think it's a really great opportunity for us. Also a little bit more about Bob Hollis and his company itself. So with that, I think I will just kind of give you this contact and really encourage anyone who wants to get involved or has ideas to get in touch with us. Thank you very much.
Wow, that's some cool news drop there at the end.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
Yeah,
fantastic. Well, thank you very much for that presentation. And I'm hoping that all of the panelists will come back on video here for a second. And we have, let me see, about 15 minutes where we can answer some questions. So I'm hoping that people who are listening there off camera, if they've got any questions to any of the panelists or to all of the panelists, please pop them in the chat. And I'm hoping that Arit maybe can help me monitor that if it starts getting going. So far I don't see any. So I'll ask my question first. How do you think? I'd love each of you to riff a little bit about how the other initiatives are influencing or could influence the next steps for your initiative. So let's start with Jenny. How can the other initiatives, now that you've kind of seen what was shared today, where's the connectivity do you see?
Oh my, I think I have the easiest connections to answer. So really, I think the slide I had at the end, sums up how I see all these pieces fitting together and really using the survey to help inform this current body of knowledge that we have, what the gaps are, using focus groups and other outreach through the initiative that Phil and Adam are working on to kind of really figure out like, where are the gaps in knowledge at the practitioner level? What is the information that people are looking for? And really like, what can this community pull together in a very accessible way to fill those gaps in that, in that need? And where's the best place to put that? The hub. And so, in working with all of these initiatives and being part of the focus groups and other roundtable discussions that we've had, there is an interest to be part of the conversation and to learn more and learn from each other and really, swap stories, swap needs, and everyone is interested in implementing Floodmar projects and have recognized that in implementing multi-benefit projects, you need partners, you need to talk to people, and we're all kind of doing that. And not only do we have the big Floodmar network, but I feel like we're building our own smaller project networks too, and just learning and how to connect all of our pieces together and move forward. So I think, the nice thing about the communication plan is it touches a little bit of everything.
Thanks, Jenny. How about you, Phil and Adam, and maybe Phil go first. How do you see, and I guess maybe the way I'd stretch the question a little bit to the two of you, are the GSAs already a network unto themselves that you've now connected Floodmar to a GSA network, or are they mostly operating individually still, and that this is an opportunity to bring them together?
Yeah, I think this is a great opportunity to connect all the GSAs. You know, they're probably so varied trying to implement their plans. And I know GRA has a GSA summit that we've had for the past 3 or 4 years. And so that's been a tool to try and connect the GSAs. But I think the hub is even could have an even wider reach than that, because it can be done digitally, you know, online, virtually, and really connecting the GSAs. And I think it's really important because they're all going to have a lot of lessons learned, a lot to teach each other. So I think there's a tremendous value in trying to get them all connected and talking with each other, so we don't reinvent the wheel. So we really learn from each other and move the ball forward.
Yeah, and I'll add to this too. I think that, you know, the initiative and the network right now is pretty focused, and you can see it from the stuff that Megan put up there. You know, it's pretty heavy on research organizations and governmental organizations, nonprofits. It's pretty light on local organizations. And so I think that the nice thing about this initiative that Adam and I did is it reached out to the GSAs, and it would be good to do that with others. I think that in the end, the successful implementation of the Floodmar is going to require a lot of collaboration. You know, and I know that's something Mike has talked about a lot in the past. But as you look at as you dig in at the local level and you really look at a lot of the challenges that are faced, it's not only about, you know, what is a good project and how do you do it and what are the technical questions, but, you know, how do you get it through your regulatory process? How do you get it? How do you get all the state agencies to be on board? How do you, you know, get the most benefit regionally? And so I think that this initiative this network is a good place to start for trying to really help with that collaboration.
Thanks, Phil. Megan, how about you? Where do you see the other initiatives tagging Initiative 1?
Like Jenny, I think this one is pretty easy too. So obviously the survey and getting input from what's going on the ground, connecting with the focus group that the GSA had, making sure that all of their information of what they're working on is incorporated into this as well. And then as Aisha mentioned, there's a portion of the website that actually incorporates the report or whatever we're going to build from the survey on the hub. So yeah, I just, again, encourage people to take the survey so it ends up being a useful tool.
Thanks. And somewhat my question was sponsored by Aisha. Your presentation already saw those connections in the way that you gave it. Do you have anything to add now that you're answering Q&A here?
Well, yeah, obviously the hub is kind of a way for all of the initiatives to present information. It's just the online presence. And so, and that way it's very, it hopefully serves the purposes of the other initiatives, but also really needs the input from those initiatives. So, you know, developing what is our mission statement, I think that is being developed by the communications plan, you know, as a network, you know, what is our vision and our goals. And then just developing, you know, all of those, you know, internally generated information that's going to require a lot of work and a fair amount of work. And so I think there's obvious connections, and then there's just a lot of work to do. Not to scare anyone off, it's actually pretty exciting. And you know, really thinking about how much we're each going to contribute versus trying to get someone else to make the content for us is going to be a budget issue. But like I said, you know, I think we just had this amazing windfall where we have our website for free right now. So we can really turn our effort into content generation.
So keep going for a second, Aisha. Also, I'd love to have the others in the room hear a little bit about what it's like to be an anchor of an initiative and the risk reward of supporting a group like that.
Risk reward.
Yeah.
Yes. So
There's
I
a comma in
volunteered
there.
just honestly, I volunteered because nobody else did. And so I think that's often what happens for people. And so very much hoping for people to want to take leadership and, pass the baton, like take, it doesn't mean you're married to it for the rest of your life. You can move on. So I think it's really helpful just to have a bunch of people rotating in roles.
Yeah, and what's true about the network too is that these were the 4 initiatives that came out of the first time the network decided what was most important to get done. And as Jenny's slide earlier suggested, there's going to be other initiatives as we go forward. We have Camyar in the chat sharing what Camyar always gets to share is that we are networks of networks, and that it's always important to think about it that way, that the GSAs themselves are networks. So drawing those connections into a nice fractal pattern of water management is the way Camyar thinks about the world, I know for sure. Megan, what's it been like as a co-anchor of one of these initiatives?
It's been a really good, fun process, I would say, as a way to get engaged with a whole bunch of different people and learn from them and collaborate and get a chance to learn more from one another in a way that, my day-to-day as a consultant, I sometimes get very narrowly focused on a specific project, but seeing how they all connect to one another has been really fun and rewarding. And so I've appreciated that.
Thanks, Megan. Don, I saw you come on camera. Did you have a question for the panel, or was that just random?
No, I just wanted to participate a little more.
Well, thank you very much.
Question.
No question. All right. How about you, Phil and Adam? What's it been like as anchors of your initiative?
It's been a great experience. Really enjoyed working with Bill. And, I think one thing we've learned, especially from the focus group that we had, is just how much we have to offer each other. Just learning from what we're doing. We get so in the trenches in our own situation that it's nice to come out of the foxhole for a little while and look around the horizon and see what other people are doing. So it's extremely valuable, and it's extremely rewarding to talk to other people that are doing great work and really learn from them, and also share successes and see the light bulb go off. And so it's very rewarding. And if you're out there on the fence, I encourage you to jump in.
Yeah, I've enjoyed working with Adam. He brings a lot of experience to the issues, and it's been great working with Jenny Moore and Reed and Megan as well. I chose to do it because it's important to me, and of course, as a small business owner, I guess is what you call it. I'm a little bit into the control thing of my own little life, and so it was, I look at the Floodmore thing and I think, well, it really needs, it could really use help in moving this direction or that direction. And so, that was my initial incentive to get involved and really try to bring get local voices more involved. It's been very interesting, though, hearing Adam's perspective through a lot of this. And I think to some degree, our initiative took some winding paths, forward because of the input of everyone else and sort of trying to come to some agreements on where it should go.
Thanks, Phil. So we have time left in this session that's intended to go to breakouts, but I just wanted to wrap a little by saying, as a social scientist, my perspective on all this is that we are social creatures, and we really are enlivened by our relationships and our connections to one another. And having a platform like this network, which is not itself a mission, its role is to help build those relationships, to strengthen the work that all of us are doing anyway on our day jobs or our day and a half jobs for many of us, right? That we are enriched by these partnerships and friendships and relationships that get established through the network. And it's just really exciting to have been alongside and part of it as it's grown, and to see what these initiatives have achieved. Behind the 5 people you've heard talk today are tens of people, 20s of people. Lots of folks have all pitched in one way or another to bring these initiatives forward. And it's just really exciting to see what the network has become. I'm going to turn it over to Arit to help situate the little breakout session we have before the rest of the agenda. And thank you everyone for your attention and participation.
Great. Thank you, Mike, for moderating and introducing the network to everyone, and to all our anchors for sharing information about all the work that you've been doing and really setting an important foundation for the network. It's been great hearing it all in kind of in one space, and seeing how much really we've accomplished as a network working together this past year. This is really great. And Jenny, the Zoom poll that you had earlier about how people want to connect really is a reminder to the fact that we have lots of tools, communication tools, but people really want to connect with each other through conversations. And so I think the GSA focus, the fact that you in your polls saw very similar results to the fact that people want to engage in conversations while wanting to really advance Floodmar, should be that call to action for everyone to connect with the network and be part of it. It's so exciting, Aisha, to hear about the website. I already looked it up, and it's just great to know that it's moving in that direction, because the information sharing and leveraging the expertise is going to be so important moving forward. So really, really excited about all the work ahead with the network. And we want to give all participants an opportunity to think about, given what you heard about the network, to engage in some smaller conversation and think about what is the value the network can provide. How do you see this work benefiting you? And it's back to the give and get concept that we're continuously coming back to with the network, is that there's opportunity to give something to support this collective mission and purpose. And at the same time, there is a lot to get out of connecting with those who are interested in the Floodmar effort. And so Tommy is going to randomly break you into a breakout. We have 20 minutes. And so when you see the invitation, please accept it. Gives you a chance to meet new people. Please turn on your video and really spend time with each other thinking about this and how you connect with the network. And then we're going to take a break from 12:30, and we're going to come back at 2:30 for our next session. So thanks, everyone. It's been really great hearing from you. Go ahead, Tommy, we're ready.
Yeah, so actually my co-producer, Kara Taylor Hunt, is going to do it. She's doing it right now. But before you go in, if we have some people drop off and there's nobody in your breakout room, I'm allowing you guys to choose your other rooms. And if you have any point in time you have any issues in your room, please go ahead and come back on. And also just want to let you know that I let everybody allowed you to unmute yourself. So you may have a hot mic right now. So Kara, if you can go ahead and open the breakout rooms, that would be perfect.
Thanks, everyone.
And if you guys are having problems going into a room where there's nobody in there, you can come on unmute and let me know. And it looks like scanning, it looks like we have everybody in breakout rooms, but I see we have, well, we have two Benjamins and Francisco and Joy. Please let me know if you have any issues getting into the room. All right, and Francisco, do you need any assistance?
No, thank you. I'm just trying to figure out something.
Okay, no problem at all. Yeah, so when we're done with the session at 12:30, then it'll be our lunch break, and then you'll come back into the room for our afternoon session starting at 2:30.
lunchtime looks like.
It is. Hopefully everybody had a good conversation in the breakouts, and we'll take a break and reconvene at 2:30. Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.
Thank you, Rit.
So for everyone as well, the link to the attendee hub, we know there were some issues folks had experienced earlier this morning. So it has been fixed. So the attendee hub should be working fine. If for any reason it's not this afternoon, it's the same feed that we're using right now. So the link that you saved, and I will just go ahead and do this real quick. I'm just going to throw this into chat for all of you. And let me just move some stuff around. All right, so I'm going to put this to everyone in the meeting. I was going to put it on everyone for the meeting. Here, hold on a sec. And now it's not working. Hold on just a sec. Invite, copy, copy link. There it is.
And
all right.
Tommy, in
Yes.
our breakout session, and there's a chat, Helen Alke isn't able to turn on her camera, says that the host has blocked it or something to that effect.
Was it for all it?
Here
We
she
just
is.
fixed
Yes,
it.
we just fixed it.
Oh,
Okay.
Got it.
Thank you, Kamyor.
And then is it preferred that we sign off and then come
Yes.
in, or just leave it on?
No, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting.
Okay.
And so I'll end it for everyone on here. I just wanted to, again, I know we had some technical issues this morning in terms of the link not letting certain folks in. And so we have fixed it, but I wanted to put in the chat the Zoom meeting link. It's the same one for the next one this afternoon so that you have it should you run into any other issues. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting for now. And for our presenters that are speaking, we'll come back in the room at 1:50 this afternoon. So I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting, and thank you everyone, and we'll see you. Have a great lunch. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Tommy.
Yeah, welcome. Very welcome.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.